Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us for the third session in our B2B digital transformation webinar series. We have 5 exceptional speakers today. Jonathan Newman is a seasoned executive leader bringing extensive experience in digital transformation, B2B e-commerce, and successfully driving innovation and operational excellence in global companies. Prithpal Rhoda is CTO in Mad Grid Dynamics. With nearly 3 decades of experience in technical leadership roles across B2B and B2C, Prithpal is focused on helping companies align their technology strategy with long-term business goals. Manish Kumar is the technical director at Grid Dynamics CTO office. With his extensive experience leading technology strategy and digital transformation initiatives, Manish specializes in helping companies navigate complex architecture decisions. We're delighted to welcome today's guest speakers. First up, Jillian Bache is an enterprise account executive at Commerce Tools with deep expertise in digital commerce platforms and enterprise software. Before joining Commerce Tools, she spent nearly a decade at Adobe, where she focused on Magento, Adobe's cloud-based e-commerce solution. Her background has cultivated her ability to empower businesses to select the right technologies to unlock scalable digital experiences that drive business growth. Peter Curran is General Manager of Commerce at Coveo. He's a seasoned digital commerce go-to-market expert with over 20 years of experience in enterprise e-commerce, search and discovery, content management, and analytics. Peter has held C-level roles across both startups and established B2B software firms, bringing a unique blend of strategic insight and hands-on expertise to every stage of the digital commerce journey. So those are our speakers for today. And with that, Jonathan, please take it away.
Excellent. Thank you, Dee. And just looking down the list of attendees, it's great to see a few names that I recognize from the earlier session. So obviously something is connecting. Thank you for joining us again today. And I hope over the next 3 sessions, we can keep up the value. Today, as Dee said, we're taking a bit of a deep dive into personalization. This builds on the themes of the first 2 sessions where we were talking about consumerization, its impact on B2B buyer expectations, and then learning from B2C regarding data that can be used to drive improvements of the digital experience. Today's agenda is going to take us through some insights around the business aspects or the commercial aspects or considerations on personalization. And then I'll hand over to Peter to give a demonstration of some of Coveo's technology and how they're really pushing the limit on personalization in the B2B space. We'll then have Prithpal and Manish give us a technology view that will give an insight of some of the tooling and the data that you can be taking advantage of, some strategies there, and also a case study of some work Grid has done in data-driven personalization. The final presentation session will be from Jillian, giving us a view of Commerce Tools and how they're helping their customers architect for personalized experiences in B2B. And then, as Dee said, we'll open up and take questions. So if there's anything that comes up across the course of the session, please drop it into the chat. Let us pick up those questions. We'll handle as many of them as we can before we wrap up. So let me kick off with let's say a business perspective on B2B personalization. We've talked about consumerization and we've talked about how that's changing buyer expectations. That brings with it some challenges, but it also is bringing with it some very interesting, very valuable opportunities to change how we engage and interact with our customers across all of the various touch points that they leverage within their journey and often within their omni-channel journey. As we start looking at that, I'll contrast the differences between B2C and B2B customers and draw out some of the impact that those differences have on personalization strategies. We'll then transition into some thoughts or some ideas as to how you can start to adopt this, deploy this in your organization. And then finally, I'm going to share some insights from an omni-channel personalization program that I deployed a few years ago with my team. But let's start with the customer. So I'm going to state something very obvious, that in the B2C world, the seller is dealing with the consumer. That is a one-to-one interaction. In the B2B world, we're dealing with a business, an entity that has multiple employees that are all acting on behalf of that customer to perform a role. In the consumer world, The B2C organization is trying to win every customer, every visit, and then convert that customer to submit an order. They have developed some incredible tooling for observation and then intervention, personalization, and testing of changes to those experience with that win the customer, win the order goal in mind. When we think about personalization in the B2B world, we have a much more complicated set of challenges. We're not just trying to convince one customer to complete one order, but we're trying to reflect the complexity of our trading relationship with that customer and to support the different roles that the individuals working for that organization have. If we can effectively do that, we can create personalized experiences that really help solve their needs. One way to think about that is in the B2C world, focus a lot on demographic data to drive your personalization strategies. In the B2B world, not only do you need demographics, but you also have to factor in firmographics and roles-based data. Let's drill into that a little bit. So foundationally, you've got two types of roles to contemplate. The functional role. I may be a support engineer or a salesperson or a buyer. And I have different roles I'm trying to fulfill, different jobs I am trying to complete. And I may be using your tools as part of my day-to-day to complete those jobs. I also have different roles in terms of decision-making. I may be an influencer, I may be the ultimate decision maker, or I may just be somebody who has to be informed of the outcome of the decision. That changes my expectation as I'm using a tool. So when we think about roles, the job I'm trying to do and the role I play or the outcome I'm trying to achieve are very important. Move then into firmographics. Everything you know about the company, your customer, is a great opportunity, a foundation for a personalization strategy. What's the size of their business, the age of their business, what's their revenue, the number of employees, what sectors do they support, what certifications or authorizations do they have, what type of projects are they running with their customers. All of that is rich information to start shaping your personalization strategy, as is transactional information. What are they buying? What are they not buying? What are customers that look like them buying that they're not buying? And those insights really can help start to create the basis for your personalization campaigns. And then lastly, not the lowest priority, but lastly on this list, start looking at demographics. What do we know about the individual? And how do we give them an experience that meets their requirements, meets their expectations, responds to this trend of consumerization within B2B? If you think about B2C, it's one-to-one personalization, and it is predominantly product and merchandising because it's about bringing the visitor in and then converting and winning that order. Every customer, every order, every day. In the B2B world, we have a much more complicated challenge. We have to think about the role and the workflows and the business process. We have to think about the individual's job to be done, their objective, their role. We need to think about the company that they work for and everything we know around that. And then we need to think about the consumerized expectations and the demographics. A lot more to think about, but fortunately that data is there and we can start to draw upon it. Now, I said I'd talk about how to approach some of these strategies. I really like this wheel. First, it emphasizes that this is a continuous circle, a continuous process. You don't start a personalization project and 3 months later finish it and it's just set and done. This is a constant iterative learning process. The good news is you can start very small. So you start with a fairly simple objective or a simple outcome. Walk through the process, understand the data, look at what technology you can leverage to support it. Define the personalization campaign, define the testing and measurement strategy, analyze the outcome and feed that back in. And when you go the second time, you can be a little bit bolder. You can expand the scope of that test or that campaign. You can increase the scale of your ambition or the scale of the objective you're trying to achieve. By following this constant iterative cycle, you can take the first step and then the second step will build upon that and the third step will build upon that. You'll be capturing data across that campaign experience that feeds in and makes the next campaign more effective. That's it. You can start small. You can start without significant technology investments. You can start by leveraging things you've already got and prove that out. And that's really important as you start trying to win support and funding for your initiatives and the investments you want to take as you scale your personalization strategy. Now, the last thing I said I'd share with you is just a little bit of a reflection on something my team and I did a few years ago. Now, let me start by saying our initial objective was to build out a platform that instrumented the entire customer journey across every touch point. We had online, offline touch points, we had voice channel, print, and so forth that we were supporting. We managed to capture all of that data and consolidate that in one platform that allowed us to track the customer journey from the initial contact all the way through their life cycle. And we could see when they were switching channels and identify the sources of friction that were driving that channel switch. Now, I'm not going to draw out all the insights, but that second point there, 56% of the customers placing an online order, next action was to call the contact center, was pretty alarming when we first saw it. Now, spoiler alert, it wasn't a problem with the website. It wasn't a problem with the order confirmation. It actually highlighted an organizational issue where we had failed to align the objectives and the incentives within the contact center and created a dynamic where our own channels were competing with each other. I won't dwell on that too much more now, but it's really interesting that as you map out and observe your customer journeys, what you can learn and what you can uncover is incredibly powerful. Now, I said this was a personalization platform. When we deployed this, we saw some pretty incredible results. So on the email channel, by following this process that we built, we increased the open rate by 60% and we increased the attributed sales by 327% just on email. So pretty incredible uplift by having this understanding, orchestrating across the journey, having that data, and then turning that into fuel for our personalization strategy. The other examples that I really loved in terms of the results were in terms of the web experience. And two things there. New customer conversion went up by 20% and revenue per session went up by just over 22%. So again, very, very meaningful commercial impact by laying this personalization foundation, running through that cycle, starting small, testing, learning, and being able to direct personalized campaigns at the right customer, understanding their need from a firmographics, from a functional and role, and from a demographic standpoint. I'm going to stop there and pause. I'm going to hand over to Peter now and have Peter give you an insight of some of the advanced things that Coveo are doing to support B2B e-commerce. Peter, over to you.
Thanks, Jonathan. Yeah, so let me give you a little bit of an idea of where the rubber meets the road with personalization. Coveo is a product discovery platform, and we have a set of overlapping artificial intelligence features that attempt to not only understand what somebody means when they search for something or when they navigate what they're really looking for, but try to also personalize that to meet their role or their particular interest that day. And these overlapping and competing AI models are kind of described here. And really the one that we're focused on when we talk about personalization is this intent-aware product ranking. If you think about an assortment that includes a real wide variety of products, you might have two shoppers who are both interested in gloves. One of them wants to go golfing, the other one is going to do yard work. Those are very different kinds of gloves for those different use cases. And so when we are able to infer that one shopper is interested in golf, maybe because they've added a golf bag or a golf club or a browse around golf clothes, then we're able to infer that they probably want golf gloves when they search for glove. Personalization is not just about finding products. We have what we call a unified index, and that means that we're able to pull product and non-product content together into one user experience. So Jonathan was talking about how quickly people go from a product discovery to a phone call to customer support. we find that we're able to deflect those calls to support by giving people access to non-product content that helps them answer questions. One thing that Coveo does really well is that we're able to handle a complex problem in B2B. So typically you'll have particular prices for individual customers or swaths of customers. And typically what other platforms do is they denormalize the search index. They flatten it out where they say, product one is this price for this customer, product one is that price for that customer, and so on and so forth. This makes a really large, unwieldy index. Coveo is able to handle that B2B complexity by storing those prices on the actual, for all those customers on the actual record with the where the particular product is stored. And what's cool is we've got a patent for that that was just awarded a few months ago. That allows us to keep a really compact index, but more importantly, it allows the machine learning to focus on the products themselves and figure out relationships not between a denormalized product and an individual, but a product as a whole in an individual or in a company. We, of course, also provide a merchandising suite that allows a business user, even in B2B, to get over the top of the user experience and apply rules where they may want to. Let me just show you a quick demo of what that might look like. So this is a boat, B2B boat site. Like you could think something like Fisheries Supply or West Marine. I'm going to come in here. All of the imagery in this is AI generated, so it's a little weird looking. But if I type radio, start to type radio, you can see these big blocky radios are coming back. Again, AI generated, those aren't real things. But if I sign in here and sign in, and then let's say I go into the GPS area and I go to handheld and portable GPSs, and let's say, go to this one and add it to cart. And then continue to use the site, and then come back and now start to type radio. I should start to see more handheld type radios coming back. You can sort of see that a few of these have, and I'm hovering over some of the things below. You can see that some of these are a little bit more like the handheld type as opposed to the big blocky type. To give you a real world example, consider a query for gloves like the example I gave earlier. This is a live site, a customer of ours. And if you think this is kind of a cherry-picked example, there are really lots of overlapping and very different kinds of products. So for example, a torch might mean a flashlight, or it might mean a welding torch to a B2B user. And so knowing their company and their role helps us, disambiguate which kind of torch they're looking for. So if on this website I go in and I search for gloves, by default, Coveo is both attempting to disambiguate the query by saying, hey, do you want gloves for welding or water-resistant gloves, as well as just showing bestsellers for gloves. But if I then go through the site and I add, things, dangerous solvents, things like acetone, this abrasive cleanser, and then come back and search for gloves, I get a different set of results. And you'll see these nitrile chemical resistant gloves are coming back first instead. So this is a live site. This is an anonymous. You can see I haven't logged in here. The login button is still available, but still trying to personalize based on things that I'm doing within the session. And I think with that, I'll hand it over to Prithpal.
Thanks, Peter. I've got a couple of questions about what you showed. I think my first question is the personalization all about the current session, or does it take any memory or build up memory over time about who you are by dropping a cookie or using the login?
Yeah, it can do. If we drop a cookie, then obviously we'll remember if the person logs in, like I did in the first example, then we'll have firmographic data about them to kind of Jonathan's point, and that firmographic data can influence. It's what we call context. So that context is passed in to influence the results.
Okay, and in a so in more traditional, let's say, model, you do, as Jonathan described, a lot of research and a lot of analysis with your company organization about the customer. Is that something we can import into Coveo so that the in-session builds upon that, or is it kind of strictly in session?
No, it's something that we can import to. We can, the problem of a cold start is, I think, a thing a lot of people are aware of now as it relates to artificial intelligence. So importing that kind of information in order to prime the user experience is something we can also do. It's a good question.
Brilliant. Hopefully you see my screen. No, that is.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Let me see if I can remove that. And away we go. Let's try that again. No. Final go. How's that? Okay, brilliant. So the next 10 minutes will be particularly smooth, and it's going to be talking about the technical side. And I think a useful way to look at something like personalization is basically from value chain. So you take a step back and look at the various aspects and how you're going to bring value to your customer. And so you can look at it as you're going to gather information, you're going to do some analysis on the information, and then you're going to try to manifest some change for your customer. So when we look at it in those broad terms, the first thing we want to look at is data, and we can break down customer data into three areas. One is identity, and that's something obviously that John talked about. The other is transactions. Again, we talked about that. I think we need to do maybe a bit of work to collect transactions from all of our channels rather than just digital channels, even if we're going to manifest personalizations to the digital channel. I think, and finally, it's customer behavior. And I think if you talk about where opportunities are, it's probably in customer behavior. So when I see our customers, don't necessarily we don't capture a lot of behavioral data. And when that behavioral data is captured, it's not necessarily processed in a way that lends itself to flowing through the value chain. It's often pushed into a bit of a dead end. So I think there could be some value in looking at that particular area. Another aspect I think that could be worth looking at is zero-party data. So in terms of sources of data, first-party data is data that you would capture through your interactions with your customer. Zero-party data is the information that they offer to give you. So, if you were to put up a survey and they could tell you their role, the kind of information they're interested in, and when they're interested in receiving it. And what we see is that the organizations that use zero-party data collection techniques use it a lot, but most organizations use it very little. So maybe there's a balance to be struck in how we collect data. So if we have our strategy and we know our strengths and weaknesses in terms of how we gather data, the next thing to think about is how we analyze it and how we can then manifest experiences for our customers that are more relevant. And that's something that Manish is going to show in his case study. Manish?
Yeah, next slide. Yeah, so this time it is a case study. What we want to talk about is a project we have actually delivered in 2018 using, before AI became the buzzword. This is using classic AI and data science. So the problem at hand was this is a manufacturing business who has distributors, and also they directly have tools for small, medium businesses to place their bulk orders. Around 10K plus small medium businesses onboarded into an application. they wanted to increase the conversion. So one of the idea was, how do you give more insight for the small, medium businesses, especially geographically relevant data, and influence them in making the purchase based on what's happening and what's going to sell in that month or in that week. Say there is a event going on and there is so much sale happening on certain product. Why don't you allow them to stock that if the stock is running out? So what we have done as part of this is two pieces. One is a personalized product recommendation during the order placing journey, where you can see in the diagram, it has your usual items actually in demand on the day of the placing of that order, and also trending in your area. So there are few widgets which is telling the customer, this is what you should be stocking. And also it has order sizing recommendation as well. You should stock 30, you should stock 40. It's based on analyzing some of the data. The second part of this application was the analytics of that. So it has around the market trends, the local trends, the performance of your stock, as well as the analytics around how your stock is performing. So this is delivered in 4 months, mainly a data science plus the customer experience part. The outcomes were positive, increase in orders. And also what we have did was, this is a manufacturer who is a group business who has a lot of verticals. So this particular application was developed as a what we call as multi-tenant. Basically means you can roll out this application into multiple business lines by adopting the use cases. So this is an example of classic AI and machine learning. And it was done in 2018, way ahead of some of these AI hype. So that is the case study relevant to a B2B personalization approach.
Thank you, Manish. If you're having a conversation about technology and personalization, the topic of CDP will come up. And we don't see a lot of CDPs, so customer data platforms, in B2B. We certainly don't see the B2C ones being reappropriated in the B2B scenario. And even the B2B customer data platforms, I think they're somewhere between emerging and established, but not yet mature. But interesting thing, if you break down what a CDP does, and I took this, what you see on the right-hand side from an analyst report, that firstly, you can see it still follows those same 3 steps of the value chain. But the first one, the data processing, firstly, that's a lot of what the CDP does. And the other thing to notice is that most B2B organizations are already doing this, right? So they already have significant parts of their business that are responsible for cleaning data, standardizing it, storing it. They have a number of technologies that do that. And that is actually what we see more often, that the CDP style, the CDP type duties are actually distributed across various technologies in the estate. So that leads often to the good news. A lot of this is already there. I think when it's distributed in such a way and maybe in the responsibility of a number of teams, then it can be a bit more difficult to coordinate change. But that's a different challenge, and that's something we talk about in the next webinar. But if we are comfortable that that data is there and we can make it accessible, then the question is, well, what's next? Well, what's next is the analysis part, and Manish already showed that. It is possible to build custom analysis layers on top of the data that you have. It's something that if you've done it before, it's not particularly challenging to do. And then you want to manifest some action. That's obviously not something the CDP does. That's the responsibility of technologies that own the experience. So one such example would be Coveo, where you can pass it your personalization information. It will make a personalized experience on search. But another example is Commerce Tools. So I will hand over to Gillian, who will talk to us about the Commerce Tools platform and personalization.
Thank you. So Before we dive even deeper into the world of B2B user personalization, I just want to briefly introduce Commerce Tools and why we're so passionate about this topic. As a leading composable commerce platform, Commerce Tools offers B2B businesses a modular, flexible architecture, allowing organizations to choose the best-of-breed components you need, avoiding really at the very heart of our offering. It gives organizations that unparalleled freedom to build a digital commerce ecosystem that's perfectly aligned with their complex and evolving business needs. As John was previously discussing, within B2B, we know you're serving multiple personas, departments, decision makers, etc., each with their own distinct requirements. Our composable approach empowers you to design and adapt your commerce workflow to cater precisely to these diverse role-based personas, ensuring that you're prepared to support not just what you know today, but also the unknown of what's to come. This adaptability is crucial for truly cracking the code of personalization. Now, over 50% of our customers currently utilize Commerce Tools for their B2B customer journeys, and top analyst firms globally recognize us as a leader in B2B commerce, validating our innovative platform and the tangible results that we help our clients achieve. We partner with hundreds of businesses, from those who are taking their very first steps into online B2B to very digitally mature multinational enterprises, all with the goal of helping them deliver truly unique and highly personalized customer journeys. This foundation of flexibility and proven expertise is really what enables us to empower you to move beyond demographics and truly understand where and how to serve the diverse roles within your customer base. If you'd like to advance to the next slide, feel free. So now let's shift our focus a bit to the current landscape of B2B buyer expectations. The reality is, customers have now come to expect, at a minimum, the same conveniences they experience in B2C across their B2B interactions. This slide highlights some compelling stats that underscore this shift. Firstly, a significant 64% of B2B buyers expect their suppliers to provide tailored digital products. This isn't just a nice to have anymore. It's a fundamental expectation. They want to see the products and services that are relevant to their specific needs and roles, regardless of channel. And yet, despite that expectation, we see a really stark contrast. 77% of B2B buyers report that their latest purchase was very complex or difficult. This gap between expectation and reality really points to the lack of truly tailored digital experiences that are out there in the market today. Buyers are still struggling through processes that really weren't designed to meet their needs and expectations. So on the right side of this slide, we outline what we consider to be the absolute table stakes in B2B commerce today. When we talk about personalization, it's really crucial to understand that these foundational elements are no longer differentiators. They're simply the cost of entry. You absolutely must be offering the same catalog assortment, negotiated pricing, and entitlement levels that have already been agreed upon offline. And if you're not, you're a bit behind. But the good news is that Commerce Tools makes managing these table stakes easy. Our platform has been built to handle this complexity out of the box, freeing up your valuable time and resources so that you can then shift your focus to the more strategic, value-driven personalization propositions, the kind that will truly differentiate your business, drive engagement, and increase conversions, which is what we'll be discussing next. So moving beyond the table stakes, let's explore what true B2B personalization looks like, what we like to call customer-specific commerce. If we think about the personalization strategy wheel that Jonathan also spoke about earlier, we really want to help our customers get beyond that crawling and even walking phase so that they can really run. And this may look like applying A/B testing to some really granular customer segments, learning what works, what doesn't, and iterating from there. On this slide, you'll see some of the key mechanisms our customers are leveraging to drive this deeper level of personalization. These mechanisms allow for incredible granularity, enabling you to deliver experiences that truly resonate with the diverse roles and needs within your B2B customer base. As I mentioned earlier, We have the privilege of serving hundreds of customers who are utilizing commerce tools, something we're very proud of. And at times we help them continue to crawl, but always with the future vision of where they'd like to be running to. So in an effort to bring some of these more advanced strategies to life, I'll briefly highlight a few of our customers who are really setting the pace. When the COVID-19 pandemic struck, Cepheid, a molecular diagnostics leader, faced an unprecedented surge in demand for testing. They didn't just react, they capitalized on the moment with remarkable agility. And by leveraging commerce tools, they swiftly launched a robust B2B e-commerce site, rapidly transforming their digital presence to meet the urgent demand tailored to the needs of each individual market they were serving. Lallemand, a global leader in yeast and bacteria, has truly mastered the art of omni-channel buying experiences for their incredibly diverse B2B customer base. Operating across distinct industries like baking, winemaking, and animal nutrition, Lallemand leverages commerce tools to effortlessly redirect customers from a self-service digital interaction to a consultative purchasing process where expert advice is sometimes needed to guide them towards the right outcomes each time. And lastly, we have a leading national healthcare procurement organization responsible for supplying a vast array of medical products and services across a complex public health system. This organization is pioneering advanced B2B personalization, enabling doctors and nurses to create custom care paths with specific products tailored for each stage of their patient's recovery. By moving beyond static catalogs to directly support the nuanced needs of healthcare professionals, they've been able to ensure increased compliance, a reduction in friction, and ultimately are driving towards enhancing the patient outcomes. What really unites all three of these success stories together and is key to crafting sophisticated, personalized B2B experiences is a flexible, composable architecture. Sorry, but I have to make a little bit of a shameless plug there again. This architecture is what allow businesses to seamlessly integrate with best-of-breed solutions like Coveo, perhaps, or your CRM or any other best-of-breed technology you may be needing to leverage. And as Prithpal also highlighted, data is king or queen if you prefer. However, its true power is really only going to be unleashed when you have the right foundation for seamless real-time data exchange and interoperability. This agility allows businesses to innovate and adapt quickly, free from the constraints of rigid all-in-one platforms. This is where we see a completely crucial advantage in today's B2B landscape.
Excellent, Gillian. Thank you. I really like that second slide you had, and I think that's a really good reminder for this whole audience as to where the B2B buyer expectations are now, and that so many things that were advances in the not too distant past are now table stakes. And I think it is a call to action for all of us in B2B leadership roles to be making sure that we are operating at this table stakes level. So it's a really good reminder, and it's certainly something that, you know, if you're taking away something from this session, if you're not ticking the boxes on this table stakes slide, it certainly gives you some ideas where to prioritize so you get back up to with the pack. Now, as you transition into thinking about the more advanced strategies, the customer examples were quite interesting. And Jill, I was wondering, could you just elaborate a little on Lallemand and what they're doing around omnichannel? It sounds, very pertinent.
Of course. So I mentioned that Lallemand sells yeast and other bacterial elements. Fun fact about them, all of the champagne in the world is manufactured using Lallemand yeast. And there's naturally a little bit of science, or you could say a lot of bit of science when it comes to using these ingredients. So as a potential use case, they might be serving, a baker may have a new recipe for croissants, and they want to ensure that they're making the fluffiest croissants, and therefore are purchasing a new type of yeast that they haven't engaged with in their other recipes. What they don't know is that there might be another activating agent, which makes that yeast 10x more effective. And so when Lallemand sees a customer that's trying to make a purchase of a specific SKU they've not yet purchased previously, they've created a journey which tactfully redirects them from the self-service mode and gets them directly engaging with one of their product experts so that they have that human level of touch and guidance, always ensuring that they're making not just the right purchase, but the best purchase possible to drive the intended outcomes of what they're looking to achieve.
Well, I really like that. And I think that talks to one of the complexities we have in B2B personalization, because we've got to come back to what's the business process objective or the role objective that the person's trying to complete. And sometimes the right thing to do and the best thing to do is a little counterintuitive to those of us that come with a digital bias and say everything should be self-serve. And that ability to seamlessly hand the customer off to the right channel, the right touch point, and to keep that experience continuous, really resonates. I think it makes a lot of sense as we look at a lot of our B2B processes and our customers' challenges and jobs to be done. Gillian, before we transition into the Q&A, I did have one other question for you. So you touched on best of breed, and I think you sort of talked about some of the architectural enablers for that. But I just wonder if you want to unpack that a little bit more, because I think that's another really interesting theme.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think especially when it comes to the complexity we know that exists within B2B organizations, we never want to, there is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all solution. So the composability that Commerce Tools offers, that's what's allowing our customers to really tailor their tech stack to their specific business needs, their specific customer demands, and also allows them the agility to make changes to that technology stack as the needs of tomorrow are going to evolve. A couple other points I'll touch upon quickly. I mean, the right flexible foundation is also going to ensure that you have the right mechanisms in place to allow for accessible flow of data. When data moves seamlessly, your business is going to be set up for success. And it means you're also going to have the right level of data to make informed business decisions, whether it's about maybe entering into a new market, expanding into a product line that you haven't previously operated with. You want to make sure that those insights are coming in real time and you're able to then, deploy them throughout different strategies based on this setup. And then I can't believe I almost made it through this whole webinar without saying everyone's favorite buzzword, which is AI or agentic AI right now. Our API first methodology, which is a core tenet of composable commerce, means customers on Commerce Tools are inherently ready for agentic AI. By exposing capabilities like products and pricing through our distinct APIs, AI agents can immediately access and utilize this data. So it's less about the fact that if you're on Commerce Tools, you can start capitalizing on this today. And it's more the flexibility of a composable architecture, which is going to allow your business to scale over time, will also set you up for the unknowns of what tomorrow's buzzword might be.
Excellent, very good, thank you. That flexibility note really resonates, and one of my firm beliefs is you've got to start small and incrementally move through change, and that's actually a theme in part 5 of this series for those that are following along. So we'll deep dive into that then. But what I'm hearing when you talk about the composable architecture that you're supporting, actually, I can start putting in individual components. I can start small and I can scale that out as I learn, which de-risks my program of work, helps me spread some of the costs, start demonstrating benefits back into the organization. So really like the architecture supporting that change management strategy and that benefits realization strategy that we'll touch on in part 5. Right, so that's the end of the presentation content that we've got today. We're now going to switch into the Q&A. Looking at the time, I want to warn people, we may run over the top of the hour. We've got a few questions that have come in. I don't want to cut those short. Completely understand that some of you will have commitments at the top of the hour, will drop off. If you don't get to see all of the Q&A or we miss your question, please go back and have a look at the on-demand version. We'll try and get through as many of the questions as we can. Actually, I have a question come in, and I'm going to take it myself. The question was going back to firmographics and demographics. As you talked about firmographics and demographics as foundations for personalization. can you explain how internationalization may affect this foundation? When I saw it, I sort of cringed a little because it's a bit of a nasty question, but actually it's really quite insightful. And I think the way I'd answer that is say, go back to firmographics, demographics, and roles. The firmographics really, I'm not sure I'd say that's heavily impacted by internationalization. It is what it is. But on the demographic side and on the role side, I've seen many cases where that very much does change as you move from market to market. On the demographic side, you pick up a lot of that. User preference changes from one culture to another, and that's, I think, a well-studied part. So I won't answer based on that, but just to give an illustration, roles based changes quite a lot. One of the best examples that I've had to deal with, or one of the most obvious examples I've had to deal with, is the changes in approval workflows in different countries. In Europe, many of you know that Germany has quite a history of very formal sign-off and approval processes on their purchasing flow. And in a couple of companies I've been at over the years, we've had to actually, for the German implementation of a lot of our digital experiences, we've had to change the purchasing flow or give the customer the option to change the purchasing flow to match their own sort of internal sign-off procedure and sign-off culture. So it's really interesting. You understand the need of a particular culture and how that impacts the business processes. You can find that roles-based personalization really does come to the fore as you move from market to market. Hope that answered the question. So picking up next, actually, Peter, there's a question for you, and this is really around relevance to the user. So the question is, how can in-session personalization balance relevance for B2B buyers, especially when multiple stakeholders are involved in a single buying journey?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think it comes back to the same the same point, right? Like, so there's firmographic data, and then there's individual role data. And so if we have multiple users in a buyer journey, and those people are logged in, then that context that's passed in about the company they work for, as well as the role that they're in, that can either be condensed into a segment or just literally passed as context. And then the products that we bring back can be ranked. Essentially, this is about ranking, right? Like, how do we rank the products that come back, and rank things that are more higher propensity for conversion above those that are lower propensity? And that sounds like not a very big deal, but the reason everybody on earth is addicted to TikTok is that it's really good at ranking. And so, we pay a lot of attention to that. So passing that context in, you can think about it from a TikTok perspective. All that stuff about, about what you're interested in and what you interact with and so forth informs TikTok or Instagram to give you more relevant stuff. And Coveo does the same thing.
Excellent. Very good. We've got another question here. Says, are all successful personalization cases about product recommendation, or are there some cases about B2B services personalization where our goal is not immediate sale of goods, but leads and lead quality? That's a great question. I'll be honest, I personally don't have great examples from the services business, not spent a lot of time in that sector myself. But what I will tell you is personalization is not just about the transaction, right? And the best personalization strategies look at the end-to-end journey, starting from awareness and trying to fill the top of the funnel, and then trying lead capture and lead nurture. So certainly you pick up your ICP, and you can be targeting your top of funnel campaigns based on the firmographic data matches against your ICP. And then as you start your personalization journey on that acquisition flow, looking at how you measure, test, and continually improve the conversion event is very applicable. In that case, you're not trying to convert in and create an order. You're trying to create a lead or qualify a lead, but it's the same tactics employed with a different goal or a different outcome in mind. So yeah, I would argue that it is universal across industries and not specific to just product sales. Excellent, very good. So I have a question that's come in, and just looking at it, Manish, I think I might throw it to you. So it says, in the case study shared, the MVP went live in just 4 months. What were the critical success factors, and how could another organization replicate that pace?
Yeah, in this particular case, they have all the data sorted already. So you didn't have to go looking for the data or plumbing the data. So the piece of work was around building the analytics and the intelligence into it. So it was more starting with the data science aspect. And then the other success factor was the outcomes were clearly defined. So they wanted 2 widgets. One is, this is what is trending in your area. And this is, so it was clearly defined. So if you look at it in a way, it was a well-defined, smaller use case, and the data was already available. So it was all about, building the analytics on top of the data and then building the next best action, which was the outcome was clearly defined. So that is a clear success factor. So if you think about then taking it to other businesses, so in certain businesses, we may have to first build the data foundations. So that may be a much bigger piece of work than building the outcome.
Very good. Gratuitous plug for part 5 of this series. If you want to answer that question, we will talk about breaking things down into small increments and delivering them. And I think that is the key. Even if you've got some challenges around the underlying data foundation or some technology gaps that you're trying to overcome, you can still achieve quick wins. And that idea of starting small, sweating the assets you've already got, getting to a measurable impact, and then using that to build credibility and secure investment to keep going, I think it's a really important thing. So we will dive into that in part 5, but certainly if you're looking to move quickly, something to keep in mind. Excellent, thank you. So another great question here. I might take it first, and then I'm going to throw to you, Peter, for an answer as well. It says, you mentioned pragmatic personalization tactics for quick wins. I think that was on our intro slide. Which 2 or 3 tactics have you seen deliver the fastest revenue or loyalty uplift in the first 90 days? So I've got 2 examples that I really like. One actually was in a non-digital scenario. We actually saw personalization working very well online, and we started to take those same personalization tactics and put them into print. This was a business producing millions of catalogs every year. We found a way of being able to actually personalize, put the person's name on it, put a message about something that they had bought previously, really get engaged with the individual from the front cover of that catalog all the way through. That drove very, very significant uplift. I think from memory, those campaigns were generating about 25 to 26% increased revenue for the marketing investment. The other example I really like, used this many times to think about how to personalize and target grow and expand, or growth and expansion campaigns with customers. Something referred to as white spot analysis. And really it's looking at your transactional data and looking at customers that are in a similar cohort, and looking at where an individual customer has a gap in a category or a vendor line that everybody else in that cohort is buying. And by raising awareness of that category or that vendor line with that customer and with promoting it, seen very, very significant uplift. So closing those white spots, really understanding what they're not buying that you think they should be, and helping them understand that A, you sell it, and B, getting it in front of them with the right offer. So there's those two would be top of my list as go-tos. Making it personal and looking at the white spots and really trying to incentivize that growth and expansion. But Peter, do you have any tactics
Yeah, I got an easy one. That is boost things that people have bought before. B2B is very repetitive in not all B2B companies have buyers who buy the same thing over and over again. Sometimes you'll have like, electrical engineers who are prototyping machines that they're building. They're buying different stuff every time. But in other B2B businesses, people are buying the same things over and over again. And so personalizing by boosting products that they've bought before, pretty simple way to make things more convenient for a buyer. I like that tactic a lot.
Excellent. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Prithpal, there's a question I think is best sent your direction. It says, our customer data sits in multiple legacy systems. Where should we begin if we want to build a personalization strategy without waiting months for the perfect data model?
I think the place to begin is probably outside of this particular task, right? So if you begin by maybe having a mindset of making the problem smaller, dividing things up, starting small subset, that is a general approach that will make decision making later on, like where do I start, a little easier. I think if you take an iterative approach, so you can break off a small piece, that will often kind of alleviate the need to sort of pick the right thing first time. I think that's kind of a very B2B question, right? As if there's one big chance to do something right, and where do we start? I think if we were looking at data and looking at where to start, there's some certain principles that will probably help. So typically speaking, we would divide data into data that's let's say the most volatile and the least volatile. So volatile meaning it changes all the time, right? And least volatile, like your role, that shouldn't change very often. And if it's not volatile, it means we can extract it and copy it in places and not have such a big burden about keeping it up to date and keeping it in sync. And copying data and transforming it in a way that's accessible is actually really common. So a search engine typically doesn't introduce new data points. It takes the data points you already have from your PIM and from the wider catalog, and inverts it and puts it in a slightly different format that's ready for use. And AI, as it happens, does something similar, right? So making your data accessible is a big part of that. I don't know if anybody else has anything to add.
When I was listening to you answering that, Prithpal, the thought I kept coming back to is one of the impediments is often the organizational structure makes it difficult to pull some of that together and to get the right data that you need to get started. And I don't think we can talk too much about the silos now, but again, another gratuitous plug. But part 4 of the series, we are going to talk about breaking down silos and creating cross-functional teams. So maybe we'll come back to that question as we get into that topic in 2 weeks' time. So the questions come in, Julian, I'm going to send it your way, and then Manish, I might ask you just if you've got a perspective you want to follow on with. But if we're still on a monolithic commerce suite, heaven forbid, what's the safest first component you've seen clients, customers carve out at the beginning as they start the transition to a composable architecture?
Ooh, it's a good question. I hesitate to say that there's a component that's going to be necessarily the safest. I would say we commonly see customers thinking about the migration of their catalog and their product information first, but that's not always going to be the right answer for you. I think the beauty of composable is that you can handle the different maybe issues or challenges going on within your existing ecosystem, and you can focus on where you have the largest burning problems, or perhaps where you see the largest area of opportunity straight out of the gate. There's not going to be like I said earlier, there's no one size fits all approach. I think this is really where leveraging the expertise of someone like a Grid Dynamics can come in and help you understand what are the current challenges, what are the goals you're trying to tackle the most quickly, and then can help you figure out what that migration path needs to look like. Because like I said, I don't think there's one right answer here. It's really going to depend on the nuances of your current state.
Yeah, just to add to what Gillian mentioned, so the way we look at it is anything you can look at as a vertical feature rather than it touches or looks like a horizontal will help you realize the ROI faster or time to market faster. As an example, PIM, search, order taking. But again, we have done multiple projects in different shapes and forms. Started with search, started with the checkout, depending on where is actually leaking more in certain businesses, and you can go and fix and get the value fast. So yeah, there is different permutations and combinations. You have to select the right one for you.
Excellent. Very good. I have one more question, and unless anything comes in on the chat, this will be, I think, the last one today. And I'll take it. And if anyone wants to add on, then please jump in when I'm done. But it says, on the personalization strategy cycle slide, there's a question: which phase most often turns into a bottleneck, and how do you maintain executive confidence in those early stages? I think it's a good question, and I think perhaps it is symptomatic of what you said as well, Prithpa, that we have had a tendency as B2B leaders to try and make things too big. And I would tell you that keeping the executive team on board and moving fast requires you to break things down and be small. And each of those cycles has to demonstrate value and allow you to start to go back to your stakeholders and say, look, we tried this. This was the outcome we were trying to achieve. This is what happened. This is what we've learned. This is what we're going to go and do next. And if you keep those cycles moving quickly, you contain the size and grow as you build credibility, as you build success, you build momentum, then you can bring them with you on that journey. If you find you're getting stuck in a data audit or a technology selection discussion, then I would tell you, I think you're focusing on the wrong things, because you can get value without solving those problems. You can make a start, make a small start, prove it, build some credibility, sweat the existing assets, then come back again. And when you're building that credibility that you can deliver uplift, you can deliver a commercial result, commercial value, the CFO, the other exec team members are going to want to listen, and they're going to want to support you as you go down that journey. Does anyone want to add to that question? Doesn't look like it.
I think you covered it. Yeah.
So, Prithpal, I think over to you.
Okay. Final step is to say thank you. Thank you to Gillian. Thank you to Peter. And next time we will be on webinar 4 or 5. And the topic is going to be accelerating digital transformation with cross-functional teams. Something that we've been trying to avoid getting into in each of the sessions. But I think ultimately many of the good ideas will remain just good ideas unless we can figure out ways of really executing well in the complexities of the organizations we find ourselves in. So that is Wednesday, 16th of July, and our guest speaker will be Charlie Bell. So thank you very much for attending, and we hope to see you there.